Hey everyone, welcome. It wasn't long ago when you saw me with these big boxes in front of me talking to you about the newly introduced T-type transmission from SRAM. Well, fast forward to 2023, July, and that's when SRAM introduced the cheaper version of these, the GX, and fast forward again to July 2024 when SRAM introduced this, the SX level T-type transmission. This is a direct mount axis type transmission that you see here installed on a 2025 Specialized Epic 8. These parts are supposed to be OEM only, so new bikes only. I have that 2025 Epic 8 behind me. Why don't we take a closer look and see what they're about? And if the GX and higher group sets were launched as a kit with everything included so you can install it on your bike, in this case we're only talking about a crankset that's called S series. We're talking about the derailleur, the S1000 derailleur, and ultimately the 10 to 52 tooth cassette. And they do borrow from the GX the rest of the components. We're talking about the shifter pod that it is a GX level and the chain that is exactly a GX T-type flat top chain. However, you can mix and match these SX level T-type components with anything else that you might have T-type wise on your bike. Again, GX, XX, XO, you name it. They all use the same tiny battery that's used with all access components, so it is interchangeable, it's OEM only, and from the little information that they put out there on the marketplace, I believe two things. Number one, this is their entry-level price point to fight the Shimano Qs, and number two, as you can see here on the derailleur and the crank actually, they are talking about the S series components, so I don't think we're done seeing SX level components. I think there's more to come if you watch the news and you saw the rumors about the cable actuated T-type transmission. I really believe that there is more to come on this S series SX components, but why don't we take a closer look at them, and I'm gonna start with the cranks. Dub wide for 52mm chain line, and to install and remove you're going to use the same 8mm hex. This is torqued to 54 Newton meters as usual. To remove the cranks, I'm going to use my patent pending hunched over pry bar method, and once you get the bolt loose you can remove it fairly easily. Use a mallet to tap out the left side crank arm and spindle. These are dub wide cranks because that's what T-type requires, and you can see that forged cranked arms, the 8-bolt installation of the new chain rings, and what we have here, this is a 34 tooth T-type chain ring. This is stamped steel. However, given the interface, you can imagine that you can install an aluminum T-type chainring on these cranks, no problem, saving a few grams in the process. Also, just like these chainrings are compatible with the bash guards, this S1000 chainring is supposed to be compatible with the new bash guards. You take out the play on the spindle in exactly the same way with their other cranksets, and the length of the crank is stamped right in here. This is a 170, but they do offer 155 to 175 in 5mm increments. Weight wise, here's the 439 plus the left arm 765, and if you are adding the bash guards, that brings it up to 846. That would be 100 grams heavier than the GX T-type equivalent. Aside from the 8-bolt of the new chain rings, these cranks remind me of the SX Eagle, the 12-speed of the old, and I do have a video talking about immediate upgrades for an SX drivetrain. I'm gonna link it up in the corner. If the cranks, again, remind me of the old Eagle, the new derailleur obviously has nothing to do with the old. However, it seems to be built very similarly to a GX T-type transmission drivetrain. You still have the direct mount or the full mount installation on UDH compatible frames. I showed you the battery that slides in here exactly like the GX that has a bit of gray color, and obviously the GX printed here on the body. This is all blacked out. You have the same jockey wheels, top and the bottom. The big difference is though here in the clutch. This is called the drag spring damper, which I assume is a downgrade from what the other T-type derailleurs use. However, this cage is exactly the same. So if you bend or break your cage on this SX derailleur, you can replace it with the GX, and that will give you that better clutch. Also interesting here is that you would expect this to be made out of steel, or here's a tiny magnet. Guess what? It doesn't stick to it. It does stick to that inside plate of the cage. So even from a weight perspective, this is probably the same 465-ish grams of the GX, 490 and change with the battery installed. So is that a blacked out GX derailleur that only says S series on it? What do you guys think? Now, let's move on to the cassette, and what I have here, this is an NX cassette. That's a 12-speed Eagle cassette that didn't really have anything special about it, aside from the fact that it used the good old Shimano HG driver. Now, the new 1270 cassette introduced with this SX does use the same HG driver of the past, but that's where all the similarities end, because this cassette actually goes from 10 to 52 tooth, just like the XD driver based cassettes. Cassette is still pushed out 2.5 millimeters, just like the XD driver counterparts, and this is the black nickel chrome finish of the cassette. This is made out of steel entirely, including that largest cog, which is actually painted black. If you look here in the corner, you're gonna see XS1270 T-type 520% used with T-type chain only, meaning flat chain. And the magic here is definitely in the way they embedded this 10th tooth, and you see how easy it is to undo it. And as I loosened up this lock nut, I expected just that to come out. It actually comes out as a hole, and look at this. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 gears that are together, and then you have a loose cog. I think this is the 18th cog, and then that's the rest of the carrier. This is all steel again, and when you read the documentation, some of it says that this should be made out of steel, others say steel or aluminum. So definitely innovative design, something that Shimano kind of struggled to do. Now, by designing it this way, they also allow e-bikers just to replace that little cluster where these 5 cogs without replacing the whole cassette. Cogs are made out of stamped steel, and you see rivets throughout the cassette as well. You still have that setup cog with a red O-ring right behind it, and overall you have shift ramps and gates everywhere on the cassette cogs. Weight of this is impressive as well. 545 is what's supposed to be, is 557. This is very close to a Shimano SLX 12-speed that uses an aluminum cog. This is made entirely out of steel. It's supposed to last twice as long as the previous generation Eagle, and I assume the whole cassette mapping and all that marketing stuff that SRAM provided us with the previous T-types, that applies for this 1270 cassette as well. For installation, you still use 40 Newton meters here on the lock ring, and if you read the documentation, they're gonna say here inside of your free hub just to use Loctite blue. It's not clear to me that they've used Loctite here for this Epic 8. So now that we ruined this bike, how do we put it back? Well, don't worry, I have a comprehensive video on how to install the SRAM T-Type transmission. I'm gonna make sure to link it in the description of this video. And as some of you guys said in the comments, it's even better than what SRAM put out. So when you put all this together, how is it gonna work? Well, you see it here on the bike stand, and honestly, you would be hard pressed to see any difference between the shifting on this S-Series drivetrain and the shifting on the more expensive drivetrains. And talking about T-Type transmission components, you guys know that I have a huge series talking about each and every component in detail. Yes, including that flat top chain that I called it 13-speed compatible. And guess what? The new SRAM Explorer, the gravel group set, it is 13-speed. It is using the same chain that we're using with these T-Type transmission drivetrains. If I was to guess, I would say that we're gonna see a lot of this S1000 on the entry-level bikes of 2025, and I would put money on the fact that the new T-Type mechanical, it's gonna be called S-Series something as well. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about these components? What do you think about the innovation that they introduced with that new cassette? Do you think this is meant for e-bikes mostly to compete with Qs? What do you think about all these new products released by SRAM? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know if you have any questions for me. I hope you liked this, and if you did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. And until next time, hope to see you folks on the trails. Cheers, guys. Cheers.